Hello, how are you? I'm Julia, and for this video I'm going to be talking about the most recent standalones that I've read, that I have as, like, on my physical shelf, or I have of the physical book. So I'm gonna do a separate video of all, like, the Kindle and, like, the audiobooks that I've listened to, because recently I have become obsessed with audiobooks, so yeah. The first book is The Nanny by Elena Ferguson. This follows Cassie, Aiden, and Sophie. So Cassie has an OnlyFans account, or she used to have an OnlyFans account, and she has, like, a super, like, she has a, I guess, a customer? I don't know what they would be called. A fan, I guess. Like, she has a really good fan. They have video visits, oh my god. They have, like, FaceTime calls, things like that. They text, they do all that stuff. And he ends up disappearing, so she quits her OnlyFans, and she finds another job as a nanny to Aiden's daughter, Sophie, as a live-in nanny. And Aiden is a chef at, like, a 5-star restaurant, and so he's super busy, and Sophie has kind of been, I don't want to say, like, dropped on him, but basically I think he had split custody with his ex, or he only saw her, like, when he could, and she unfortunately passed away from cancer, so now he has Sophie full-time. So I really enjoyed this. I thought it was so cute. I loved it so much. I thought it was really sweet of Cassie to try to keep that relationship with Sophie's aunt, because that was kind of a strained relationship between Aiden and the aunt. I can't remember her name, but I thought that was really sweet of Cassie. And I really loved Sophie's growth as, like, a little girl, because I think she's 7, but it was really sweet to see her kind of realize that she can trust Cassie because she's been through so many nannies recently. I thought it was really sweet that Sophie started to trust her, because Aiden had to hire so many different nannies because she kind of ran them off. So seeing their relationship kind of progress and do well, I thought that was cute. And as we, like, start the book, we realize that Cassie figures out that Aiden is the fan that she had started such, like, a great relationship with, and they figure it out while she's living there, and she's kind of deciding about, like, whether or not she should tell him, and she knows, I think, before they start sleeping together. So I liked this a lot. I thought it was super cute. I liked their growth as a relationship, and I really liked how she kind of just, like, immediately pulls you in with this. Like, she's like, you meet Cassie, and then she's like, immediately, kind of like second chapter, she's going to move in. And I do think that this is, like, a little slow burn, but I think she did it really well, and I really liked this. Next is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. This follows River and Jess's daughter, Juno. So this starts off with Jess and Fizzy, her best friend, learning about a science research program called Genetically, where you spit in a tube and you send it out, and they pair you with someone based on how high you're genetically, like, together. God, I'm not a science person. So basically, like, if you get above a 50 compatibility, that's the word. So if you're compatible, they will set you up, and it just says, like, if you'll be, like, good together or not. Fizzy does it, and she has her compatibility set on the app to, like, 20% to, like, 100%. So she is just kind of dating, And while Jess does it, she's like, she only wants diamond, which is, I think, is like 90% to 100%. And she gets a call from Genetically, and she shows up, and they're basically saying like, hey, River is your match. And he's like he started the company with a couple of other friends, I think, or like a professor. So he goes in and he's like, we're gonna redo this, like we're just gonna like double check that everything's good, everything's correct, and like we did get a score this high. So that's what this is about, and it was so cute. I loved everything about this. I forgot how fun it is to just read a cute little like rom-com contemporary romance. It was just adorable. I loved Juno. I loved that Jessica was so protective of her, and River started to become protective of her, like once Jess started like to allow him around her. I loved her grandparents as well. They were super cute. It's like Pop-Up and Nana, I think. Or Papa. I can't remember what they call them, but Juno wants her mom to like get out and do things, and she wants to do them with her, and they live in a cute little like apartment next door to each other, and it was just adorable. I loved River, and how he was so into the science, which I am not a science person. So there was some of this where I was like, I don't get it, but I thought it was great. I loved this. Fizzy was funny. And there is like a plot story, like a side plot where Jess is having like issues with her mom, and I think that like coincides with how she is so protective of her daughter. Like she doesn't want to turn out like her mom, and I really enjoyed that. And it was so good. It was so cute, and I loved it so much. And River and Jess, and just like them realizing that they're good together, even if like regardless of the score that they got, like even if they didn't get like a score of over 90, they still would have been good together, if that makes sense. I don't know. I really enjoyed that one though. Next is The Lovely War by Julie Berry. I'm terrible explaining how this book, like how to explain like what's going on in this book. So basically it is a dual timeline, and this is in the eyes of Aphrodite, Apollo, Hades, and Ares. I think it's Ares. So basically the goddess of love, the goddess of war, and I think and the god of the underworld. I don't know. Is he the god of war? I don't know. I'm not like huge on Greek mythology, Greek Roman mythology. But basically this tells the story of James and Hazel, who meet at a party before James is sent off to go to World War I. So I think he's going to France. And it is told by Aphrodite while she is on trial for cheating on her husband. I can't remember who her husband is. So she's cheating on her husband with Ares. And she's also telling the story of Aubrey and Colette, and Apollo and Ares are also telling the story of James and Aubrey because they're in the war. And so it's very, I don't know how to explain it, because she's on trial for cheating on her husband, and she's like, I'm gonna tell you these stories about love. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I have no idea how to explain it. I really loved the love stories that she's telling. I also really loved the trial part of it, like to see like the gods speaking to each other about things that happen, and how they all kind of have different views on what goes on, because we're also getting the point of view from Aubrey, who is an African American who plays like ragtime. I think he's a pianist or a piano player, like he played at Carnegie Hall and things like that. So now he's in France in, like, the trenches. I don't think, well, he's supposed to be building, that's a lie, he wasn't in the trenches. Oh, yes, he is in the trenches. He's part of the 5th New York Infantry. I'm still not explaining it well. I just really liked this. I thought it was really good. I listened to the audiobook with this, and I think the voice actors really added to my likeness of this. I thought it was told really well. I loved the stories between James and Hazel and Aubrey and Colette. James and Hazel kind of get separated, and they have to find their way back to each other through letters, and then they see each other, and it was just sweet, cute, like, innocent romance, and I really enjoyed it. And it being in, like, told in the eyes of Aphrodite and, like, the gods, I found that really interesting, and I found that really, like kind of like a unique story to tell. Like, I've never read anything like this. I'm sure this is not the only one, but it was great. I loved it. Next is The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. This follows Addie and Dylan. They met 4 years ago while Addie was... What was she doing? She was staying at her friend Cherry's, like, French villa. Kind of, I don't know what it would be called. I can't remember what it was called, but she was basically living, like, upstairs, and when someone needed something, like, they needed their laundry done, or they needed new sheets, or they wanted their breakfast made, she would do that. And so Cherry shows up with her friends, and Dylan is one of them, and they kind of have, like, a summer romance that they want to continue, which leads to a long-distance relationship that his best friend Marcus he's a little troublemaker. His dad is also a jerk. So there's, like, there's issues that come up while they're in the long-distance relationship, and they end up breaking up, and this is 4 years later. Cherry is getting married, and Beth is on a road trip with her sister Deb and a guy named Rodney who knows Cherry. And Dylan is in the car going to the same wedding with his best friend Marcus, and they end up rear-ending Addie. Thus begins the road trip. This was so cute. I loved this so much. I also listened to the audiobook, and I thought that was... I've become obsessed with audiobooks. They're just so good. I love them so much. They've changed my life. But this was super fun. It was funny. The road trip part, I usually don't like road trips, but I don't know if it was me listening to the audiobook that made it more fun for me, and, like, I enjoyed it more, but it was funny. And everything that happened is, like, it didn't feel like there was too much bad stuff happening. It felt like, oh, that could definitely happen on a road trip. You hope that it doesn't, but it is a possibility. And I also really loved the progression of their story beforehand and them coming back together during the road trip and everything that happened with it, and what kind of led to their breakup to begin with. Marcus can rot. I did not like him. I don't think he redeemed himself in any way. And I not a fan of Marcus. But also, before you read, if you do read this, there is a scene with sexual harassment or sexual assault. There's something that happens, so just be aware of that if it does bother you. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. Everyone else in this was great. Deb was funny. Deb's little, like, love interest that pops up was hilarious. It came so out of the blue, and I thought it was perfect. Rodney's storyline, that was a little creepy, but I also thought, like, the way that they handled it was funny. Like, it was just funny and chaotic and kind of, like, something that, like, you wouldn't know how to handle something, so you're just like, let's do it this way. And it was so good. Next is Lauren Graham's Talking as Fast as I Can, from Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls and everything in between. I listened to this Lauren Graham narrated, and I think it was a great idea for me to listen to it. Lauren Graham really is Lorelai Gilmore, and she did such a great job of narrating this. I personally, this wasn't like my favorite thing ever. I don't know how to like rate an autobiography, because you can't really be like 1 star, I didn't like it, because like this is her life. But I personally only read this for Gilmore Girls, and she talks about before Gilmore Girls, after Gilmore Girls, and then going back to Gilmore Girls. And it was interesting to learn a little bit about her, but also at the same time I wasn't like as invested as I felt like I should have been within the other parts, as invested as I was with the Gilmore Girls sections. So I did enjoy this. If you like Lauren Graham, I highly recommend listening to the audiobook, but it was good. That's what I can say. Next is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. This follows Lily Wilder, and her dad is a famous treasure hunter. People have like groups on him, and they like know like where he tried to find this treasure. I think it was from like the 1800s, where people like they stole from a bank and they hid the money, and so people have been looking for it for forever. And so Lily kind of takes on the last name and like the fame from it, and starts treasure hunts. She guides treasure hunts. I guess that's a good way to explain it. So she guides treasure hunts, and one day she sees Leo has come to do the treasure hunt, and she has flashbacks because they had a whirlwind summer romance 10 years prior, and one day he got up because his mom was sick, and he said, I have to go, and he was like, I'll call you, and he never called her. So they are stuck together, and they are trying to not point out that they know each other, because I honestly don't know why. Maybe it's like a conflict of interest or something, like I have no idea, or maybe they just don't want the others to know. So Lily does these tours with her best friend Nicole, and Leo has brought his friends Bradley, Walter, and his not so good friend Terry. And while they're on this tour, Terry decides to go rogue and steal Lily's journal and how to find the treasure that her dad was looking for. So this is like a treasure hunt love story, and this was not what I expected at all. Like, I expected them to just be like, I'm a little treasure hunt, and for it to be like cute and wonderful. And it ended up being like so much more than that, and I thought it was so good. I loved like that it wasn't just solely set on their love story. It was more of, we have to find this treasure to save ourselves, and this was really good. I really enjoyed it. I don't know how else to describe it without giving spoilers, but it was fantastic. And Christina Lauren, usually, like I said, I think I said this, but usually a hit or miss, and the last 2 books that I read by them have been hits. I also listened to this one, and that was super fun, so highly recommend. Next is Dig by A.S. King. This follows the shoveler, the freak, Can I Help You, Loretta, the flea circus ring mistress, and first class Malcolm. When this starts, we don't know, but as like the story progresses, we figure out that all of these 5 kids are cousins, and all of their parents are kind of estranged, like they don't speak to each other, and they all come from Gottfried and Marla. And this is basically about them and their lives, and the classism and racism in America, and how money talks, I guess, because Marla and Gottfried have a ton of money, and Marla, it's quoted, it says, they decline to pass on their adult children or their teenage grandchildren, so they basically have a ton of money and they don't want to pass it on. And Marla says, because we want them to thrive. So it basically talks about that, and how each child is living and how each parent is living. So we have the shoveler whose parent, his mom, is jumping from apartment to apartment and city to city, and the freak, her parents aren't really around. Can I help you? Her parents are like, her dad isn't as overbearing as her mother is, but they are there. And she sells weed out of her Arby's drive-through that she works at. And Loretta lives in a trailer and she has a circus of fleas. That really grossed me out. Wasn't a fan. And then Malcolm, First Class Malcolm, his father has cancer and he travels a ton ever since his father was diagnosed so that his dad can kind of like live and do the things that he's wanted. So that's what this is really about. I don't know how else to explain it. I wasn't a huge fan of this. I didn't like that they didn't have names. I know that they technically do, but I just wasn't a fan of it. I ended up listening to the audiobook thinking that it would help me, and it did, because each character had a different voice actor. So that helped me differentiate each kid. And yeah, so I think I gave this 3.5 stars. I can't remember. I gave it 3 stars, and basically I went into this also thinking that it was a murder mystery, and it's not a murder mystery. There is a murder in it. There is a little bit of a mystery to it, but it's not as upfront as I thought it was going to be. So it was good. I liked it. I thought the last 5% of it was my favorite part, because that's when they come together as cousins and they figure something out, and it was just, I think, yeah, that was my favorite part. It was the best part of the book, in my opinion, and I thought that was done really well. Next is The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. I didn't like this one, but this follows Siobhan, who's a life coach, Jane, who works for a local charity shop, and Miranda, who is a tree surgeon. They all know a guy named Joseph. Siobhan and Miranda are dating Joseph, and Jane is kind of just friends with him. And we start this out knowing that, I guess, I don't know, he's cheating on them. And basically it starts out that they've all been stood up for Valentine's Day by the same guy. Miranda for dinner, Siobhan for dinner, I think, and then Jane asked him to be her fake date to a wedding, or wedding rehearsal dinner or something, but he doesn't show up. So it basically follows the three of them and their relationships with Joseph. I didn't particularly like this. I thought he was an asshole for 85-95% of the book, and then the twist came and I was like, oh. But I don't think that made it any better. I was still I didn't like the way this was written. I don't know how else she could have written it, but it just wasn't, I don't think it was done well. And I see what she was trying to do with it. I get it. The twist. And in all, actuality, none of the characters were that great. I think Siobhan was okay, but, I only think Siobhan was okay because of how I found, the twist at the end. So, Miranda, she's doing, the trees, she takes care of trees, and she works with this guy, and she likes him, and so she doesn't, cheat on Joseph with him, but, it's leading there, and she goes through Joseph's phone, and she's like, why, who's on Friday? Who are you hanging out with on Friday? And Jane is just, a cute, little sweet person, but she also is so not, I don't know, I guess I just kind of wish that she was probably the best. She kind of just needed to stand up for herself a little bit more. So yeah, it wasn't my favorite. It was okay. I wish it would have been set up differently, I guess, if this was how she was going to write it. But I don't know how else she could have set it up. But I just wasn't particularly a fan. Next and last is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This follows Tiffy and Leon. Tiffy has just gotten out of a relationship with Jason, and she has to find an apartment, and a cheap one, fast. So she sees an ad in the paper for Leon's apartment, and he's like, we will be living in the same place, we'll be sharing a bed, but we will never meet each other. I work nights, so you can sleep in the bed at night. I come home when you go to work, and I will be sleeping in the bed. So they basically pass notes to each other, post-it notes, letters, things like that, so that they know what's going on in the other person's life. Like, hey, we ran out of eggs, I'm gonna grab some later. And she finds out why Leon needs the extra money, and it's because his brother Richie is in prison for robbing a convenience store, but he is claiming that he did not do it. And Tiffy's best friend's Gertie is a lawyer, and she's like, hey, can you look into this? And it ends up being Gertie looking into Richie's case, and Tiff and Leon falling in love, and Tiffy coming to terms with the fact that she was in an abusive relationship, and how he abused her mentally and emotionally. And I really enjoyed this. I thought this was super cute. I loved the progression of their friendship to relationship. And I loved her friendship with Richie, because she was like on the phone with him sometimes when Leon wasn't there or couldn't get to the phone or whatever. So it was nice. I really liked this a lot. I've been on like a Beth O'Leary kick. I think I've finished everything except for her new one coming out. And I'll probably get that one too. So it was just super cute, and I loved it. Jason was a jerk. What was his name? Martin and Jason were creepy. I think Martin needs to be just as much trouble as Jason. And Richie, he was so funny. He was good. I liked his character. He was very upbeat for being in the situation that he was in. And Tiffy with her like fun clothes, and Leon just kind of being like so supportive of his brother and everything, and just their growth as characters. Tiffy being like in an abusive relationship and coming out of it and finding love and being like feeling as if she deserves that love, and Leon giving that to her and helping her through it, and also realizing that he needs time for himself and his relationship, and not just constantly working and visiting his brother and doing all of the things. There was also a super fun like little like side plot where he was looking for a patient's lover from like I think World War II, and so he was meeting all of these Johnny Goodmans or something, and I loved that part of the story. I thought that was fun. So yeah, it was just a fun book, and I thought it was good, and I liked it. So I highly recommend. I think all of Beth O'Leary's books so far are really good, except The No-Show. I wasn't a fan of that one. And then also The Flat Share, if you go to Beth O'Leary's website, she has Returning Home, The Return Journey, which is kind of like a little epilogue, I guess, to the road trip, and it was super cute. And it's basically Dylan and Addie like sending text messages back and forth and what they're doing as they're going home. And then we also have, if you go to her website, you can find Tiffy and Leon's Christmas letters to each other while he is at home with his mom and his brother, and she is at the apartment with her friends. So those were super cute. Just like fun little like endings, I guess. And yeah, that was it. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. All of my social medias will be linked down below, and don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.